So I get the pleasure of introducing Demnlus. So Demnlus is a fourth generation Richmond native, which is incredible. His past experience includes his work as a community organizer for Richmond High School, shop steward for Teamsters Local 856, and he's been served on the Richmond Economic Development Commission and the Community Police Review Commission. Elected in 2018 to the Richmond City Council, Demnlus has focused on building affordable workforce housing and creating new economic opportunities and equity for Richmond residents. He currently works at Jumpstart for Young Children, a nonprofit that works to expand early childhood education and readiness for kindergarten. He holds an undergraduate degree from Howard University, and in 2020 received his master's degree in public policy from the University of California, Berkeley's Goldman School of Public Policy. It's my pleasure to welcome Council Member Demnlus Johnson. Demnlus.
Thank you so much, Jill, for the warm introduction. And thank you, Katrinka and James, for extending the invitation for me to be a part of this joint meeting between the Council of Industries and the Chamber of Commerce. As mentioned, my name is Demnlus Johnson III, and I have the pleasure of serving as one of your Richmond City Council members. I recently launched my campaign for Congressional District 8. Congressional District 8 is a new congressional district here in the San Francisco Bay Area that was created after civil rights organizations like the California NAACP and other organizations like the Black Hub advocated for a person of color majority district in both the Bay Area as well as in Los Angeles. When individuals from Pittsburg and Antioch and Vallejo began to reach out to me to see if I would be interested in running for the position, I saw it as an opportunity to take some of the work that I was doing here in the city of Richmond to the national scale. And I know, what does that mean? What does that look like, right? And so some of those things include, as you mentioned, my background in education, working to increase early education opportunities, as well as increasing equitable funding for K through 12 schools. And of course, dealing on the higher education side with student loan debt and Parent Plus loan debt as well. Also, you mentioned my work with affordable housing and workforce housing. One of my proudest moments was getting a unanimous vote on the Eastern Village project, which is going to be 4 city blocks on the south side, right between the Coronado and in the Coronado neighborhood bordering the Santa Fe neighborhood. And that's going to have very low income housing, moderate income housing, as well as workforce housing for public safety, as well as for educators. In addition to that, increasing employment opportunities. In my first year in office, I worked with Senator Skinner's office to get a major appropriations for the Richmond Bill program. And when I get to Washington, D.C., I want to continue to, get more funding for Richmond Build, as well as other programs like that throughout the district, like Bright Futures in Pittsburgh, more financial resources for small businesses, and then also the reparations, equity, and inclusion package, something that I created while I was in my master's program, and actually got another unanimous vote on the Richmond City Council. Another proud moment in this reparations, equity, and inclusion package. It included, policy recommendations and things that I'm actually going to be meeting with Sasha later on today under procurement. I'm talking about, having Richmond businesses enforcing the ordinance and encouraging the city manager to do shelter bidding and set asides for local businesses, as well as guaranteed programming for bonding, where the city would create a list of guaranteed co-signers. So women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses can get bonding. Under business development, we're still working with the city manager's office to increase our improvement program. Right now, we have the facade improvement program, and with the package that I came up with and that was unanimously passed, continues to do is seek funding to extend the facade improvement program, not only on McDonald Avenue and 23rd Street, but to also allow for that loan to be carried out throughout the city of Richmond. Another piece is the cannabis equity ordinance. Right now, the Economic Development Commission, as well as Thomas Amola, the city received a grant to produce this ordinance, and the idea is to increase the number of POC and other minority-owned business, cannabis-owned businesses here in the city of Richmond. And then also working with organizations like Richmond Main Street, as well as CoBiz to help with accounting, tax, and payroll services for small businesses and businesses that are just starting. Working with the HR&A, that is the consultants that's putting together the economic development plan for the city of Richmond, and making sure that we, look at all of Richmond's business corridors, not just, in addition to 23rd Street and McDonald, also looking at Cutting Boulevard, both upper and lower, near Kennedy High School, as well as near the ferry, to increase business development in those areas. Working with New Life Movement to create the Black Business Association. So, and in the summertime, actually going to be having promotions of small businesses on the city Civic Center complex. Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, some of the other pieces of the package included seeking more loans from the federal government to, give to small businesses. And that's something else that I would like to do when I get to the national level, is make sure that we, PPP and all of those other business loans during the pandemic, they helped a lot of doors stay open and not close down. And so for me, it's about making sure that we find other resources and other ways to help small businesses thrive, not just during the pandemic, but, when times are hard, or when there are certain services that are needed. And so I just wanted to, I know I said a lot, and most definitely want to take time to answer some questions and, go into greater detail of some of the things that I mentioned, but, wanted to review some of the, aspects of what I was able to do while on the city council, and what I'm looking to do, if I'm blessed to make it to DC.
Are you ready for Q&A?
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Johnson?
Yes, indeed.
So what we'd like to do, if I see Don has his hand raised, just to remind everybody, if you are on your computer screen at the very bottom, it shows a way to, it says reactions, and you can put your hand up. And between Jill, myself, and James, we will try and reach everybody. If you are on the phone, what I will do is I'll take a hand, and then I'll ask any individuals on the phone if they would like to ask a question. So my apologies, I don't know what hands went up first. I thought I saw Don's hand up first. If I am incorrect, please correct me. Don, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Gosney, sorry.
Thank you very much, Katrinka, and welcome, Demnlus, to this meeting. At every election, the voters are given choices. In this election, we're being asked to choose between a multitude of candidates. Please share with us why we should throw out a member of Congress that is currently representing part of this new district and has previously represented this community in Congress. With nearly 60 years of experience representing the people of California and the United States, why should the voters toss us that aside and send you to Congress instead?
Well, without getting too much into it, but to, actually, get into the facts of it, less than 20% of the current district was represented by one of the current candidates. And also, this new district not only was created so that we had an open seat, so that way an individual from the district would be able to run without having to contend with all of the big money and the machine politics that comes with a sitting candidate. We currently don't have anyone in Congress. We haven't had anyone in Congress since George Miller, from the city of Richmond, who understands our issues and can actually speak intimately to them. We've had individuals in Congress who've been there, and they're just now talking about some of the things that we've been facing. They're just now getting to those issues. And so for me, I've been working on these issues right here in the city of Richmond, also working across the county with folks in Pittsburg and Antioch, making sure that a lot of the issues that we do have are taken care of. And so for me, I'm not saying that we should throw anybody away. I don't believe in, I don't think that anybody can be discarded. I think that there's value in everyone. But at the same time, this particular seat was created was first intended to be an open seat, so we wouldn't have to contend with the machine politics that comes with the sitting congressman. And secondly, it was created so that an individual who lives here first and breathes our air, and deals with our situations and problems, can also be there at the table and make sure, that when they're talking about funding for affordable housing, or when they're talking about funding for the unhoused population, it's not something that goes over our representatives' head because they don't know our issues. It's something that our representatives can take advantage of and even advocate harder for because they live these issues.
Thank you, Demnlus. Is there an individual on the phone that would like to pose a question, please? If not, I believe Ms. Myrtle Braxton has her hand up next. Myrtle?
Yes. Good morning, Demnlus. I contacted the city of Richmond to get the people who had filed for election official in Richmond, and your name was there as filing to be mayor of the city of Richmond. So I'm a little bit confused. Are you running for both? If you're not running for both, why did you decide to not run for mayor of Richmond and run for this national post? Thank you.
I've never filed paperwork at the county office for that, so I will have to look into that to see, what exactly, happened there. I'll be more than happy to call Miss Pam and find out what happened. But for me, I know the expectation of my constituents. And if I'm not able to deliver on that expectation, then I'm not going to go out for the job. As I mentioned in the previous meeting, one of the key things that I ran into, one of the key issues that I ran into as a city council member was time commitment and being able to juggle a full-time job while not being a full-time council member. And I knew that if I was going to run for mayor, then that expectation was only going to grow without the position growing into a full-time position. I saw this opportunity to run for Congress as an opportunity to not only help the people of Richmond, but to help many other cities that suffer from some of the same issues that Richmond suffers from, while also being able to dedicate all of my time and all of my being to the service without having to run to work or run to another meeting. This, will be my only job. And so for me, it was an opportunity to do what I love in terms of serving people, and also expand that to serving folks in other parts of the district who have also poured into me throughout my life. And so that was the main reason, because to be 100% honest with you, Mother Braxton, I was considering running for the mayor of Richmond. And that was actually one of the reasons why the folks in Vallejo and Pittsburg began to reach out to me, because they heard that I was getting ready to launch that campaign. And they asked me if I would be willing to reconsider. I graduated from Pittsburg High School, and, they did pour a lot into me. I have a lot of family and friends out in Vallejo, and I'll be, God has blessed me with the ability to stand up for folks. And so I wanted, I saw this as that opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you for that answer. We have Tiffany Harris with her name up, or with her hand up next, sorry. Tiffany?
Yes, good morning. Demnlus, what are your plans if you don't become congressman? What will you do? Do you have a plan B or?
Join my neighborhood council and harass the city council. I won't be, I'm a big boy. So, if I don't make it, past the primary, then I sit down, and I support whoever is running for mayor and who's ever running for city council. And we try to flip things back to how they were. And, I call in and I harass them how they harass me now. So yeah, for me, I don't have to be elected. Like I said, I love it. I love being able to serve you guys. I love being able to stand up for, for folks who can't stand up for themselves, or who, can't find the words to speak for themselves. But if I, just because it's delayed doesn't mean it's denied. And if I'm not blessed in this election, I can always sit down and wait for another one.
Great. And then my other question is, what for District 8, what do you see what are the major issues in our district? And I don't know if there's one in each like city, like Richmond, Vallejo, Pittsburgh, but what do you
What
see?
I'll give you the two that I've been seeing are prevalent throughout the entire district. And that is the unhoused situation from Richmond to Pittsburgh, all the way out to Fairfield. I even did a community service project in Fairfield, helping clean up an unhoused community. And it's heartbreaking and demoralizing, like across the district, to see folks living in cars, people with kids and 3 generations, you know, sleeping in tents and, you know, building up these little shanty towns. And so affordable housing and housing at every level is very important to me to build throughout the district. Also education, just to go back to my own personal professional history, I think access to early education and childcare and paid family leave is very important because that's the architecture of our kids' brain. And that's kind of where things begin, while also making sure that K through 12 funding is taken care of. I've worked at Richmond High School. I've attended schools in East County. And when we look at our district, we don't have just one specific city in our district that is high needs. We have a high needs district. And so when it comes to education and those opportunities, and also expanding our vocabulary around education, right? In certain parts of the district, folks aren't, you know, they don't have Richmond Build programs where folks, you know, are seeing these career opportunities also as a form of higher education as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anybody on the phone line want to ask a question? If not, I will go to Ms.
Yes.
Yes, who would be that? Is that you, Lorenzo?
Yes.
Go
Thank you.
ahead, please. Yes.
First off, Demnlus, I want to congratulate you on the stance that you've taken and your up until this point, your career accomplishments. Just to piggyback off the last question, if you don't make it to the seat, do you think that there's anybody else that's qualified for the position that you would support? And also, is there anybody, if there's anybody else qualified that you would support if you don't make it?
Oh man, Lorenzo, y'all making me eat a lot of humble pie this one, because I ain't thought about not making it, because we making it. All right. We gonna make it. But you know, I'm a team player as well. So, you know, if folks decide that, you know, one of my other opponents are the better fit, I want to make sure that, you know, we bring everybody together, and I'll make sure that I can do whatever I can, you know, with my constituents to support that individual. But as of right now, Lorenzo, without sounding too full of myself, I still think I'm the best candidate.
Well, yes, I appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Going to Ms. Lisa Johnson. Lisa, did you have a, there you go.
Sorry about that. Good morning, Demnlus. So I have a question I represent many of the members from the Association of United Richmond Housing Providers.
Mm-hmm.
And you have made housing a key component of your platform.
Mm-hmm.
And Richmond has a very difficult environment for, I would say, small mom pa housing providers. Very difficult with Measure L, and now with the eviction moratorium policies that have been passed locally at the state and at the federal level. And I don't think many people are aware of the housing providers were the sole business that the government held responsible for paying for COVID-related losses. And there are huge flaws in the policies that have been passed to try to make them whole. And if you are a tenant and you refuse to apply for relief, those landlords do not get any money, and they are out tens of thousands of dollars right now and cannot be made whole. And it is decreasing the housing supply in our city and across the Bay Area because people refuse to put their houses up for rent and they are going to eliminate their rental supply. It's also destroying many ma and pa owners who rely on that income. So how do you plan to rectify that and make them whole?
Close those loopholes. You're absolutely right, Lisa. It's unfair, in my opinion, that property owners have to wait for a tenant to sign a piece of document to get their payment. I think the fact that they haven't been able to make mortgage payments is evident enough that they aren't collecting money on those properties. And so for me, it's about having real conversations with individuals such as yourself and the housing providers throughout the district to find out exactly what those loopholes are and how I can work to close those. I know the state, and as you mentioned, the state and the federal government passed several measures to, with funding attached to them for individuals to, get that funding. But I do know from personal experience that, tenants have to show that they are in need in order for individuals to get that money. And so for me, it's about really tackling those loopholes and closing those up so that way folks can get that money. But then also on the other end, right, once we come out of the pandemic, we have to really begin to see how we can support our small property owners with tax breaks and with other funding options that we can continue to provide past the pandemic.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, but the reason why I said that is because we don't want that housing to decrease. As you mentioned, it is decreasing, and we want to make sure that they have incentives, to keep their housing on the market. And so for the small property owners, not the John Stewarts and the folks that's managing some of these larger properties, but most definitely want to make sure that the mom and pop folks are able to, keep money in their pocket and benefit financially from having property and keeping housing on the market.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I know, Don, you have your hand raised, but we're going to go to individuals who haven't voiced a question yet. And the next individual is Miss Lori Hart.
Good evening, Mr. Johnson, and I'm grateful that I came behind the previous person because my question has to do with housing and more so corporate. We are doing a lot of business with new development in Richmond. Mm-hmm. And we talk about low income, but the truth of the matter is in lieu fee is always being done. And so there really isn't any low income. What do you propose to do about that?
We got to give more low income housing tax credits. I'm with you, Ms. Hart. Like I love to see. And I was, saying this to the Terminal 1 folks. I appreciated them for actually putting the low-income housing on the site instead of paying the in lieu fees. But for a lot of builders, it's really expensive to build. Whether it's CEQA or or the PLA. And I'm not saying any of these things are bad, right? Because we got to check out like the impact on the environment, and we most definitely want labor on a project. But the cost of construction has gone up so much that if there isn't any kind of, incentives in terms of like low income housing tax credits, then, it is going to be harder to get that kind of housing online. And so my goal, once I get to Washington, D.C., as somebody who's had to sat on the Richmond City Council and deal with our own housing authorities deficit and in troubles because they aren't getting the help that they need from the federal government. That's one of the main things that I have, on my to-do list when I get to Washington, D.C. is fight for more low-income housing tax credits, as well as, work with HUD and the HUD director to, see if we can get some more special funding for what's going on here with the Richmond Housing Authority, because it's still in a deficit. But to answer your question, to increase more affordable housing throughout the city of Richmond, most definitely want to make sure that we have more low-income housing tax credits.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I have Don Gosney and then Lorenzo, but before I go to them, is there anybody else on the phone line that would like to pose a question? I'm sorry, I have also Hakeem has his hand raised for the first time. Hakeem Johnson, please go ahead and ask your question, and then we'll go to Don Gosney.
Thanks. Good to see you, Demnlus. My question is more on how you would legislate when you get into, if you're successful and get into Congress, right? Because right now, and over the years, right, it's been a battle between, how progressive or how super progressive you are versus how how far right, even further, beyond where the Tea Party was, right? And so there's these extremes, and that's been going on across the country, and it seems like there's been a kind of a washing out of folks that legislate more moderately and more in tune with the collective area. So how do you propose, if you are successful, how do you work? How do you plan to work to kind of bridge that divide? Because when you have these two extremes, going on, similar to how it looks like on the current city council, right? How do you ensure that you're legislating, thoughtfully?
Thank you for that question. And as I always tell folks, Richmond City Council is no cakewalk, and I make the same pledge that I made when I was running for Richmond City Council. I'm not looking to join anybody's team or anybody's civil war. I'm going to represent the people and do what I think is best on behalf of the people. And if folks get upset with me because I'm not doing exactly what they want me to do, that's me not choosing a side. And so for me, it's always about what's best for the greatest number of people. And so I'm not looking to join anyone's team. I'm not looking to join anyone's squad or, go up there and fight Republicans or anything like that. I'm looking to go get money for District 8. I'm looking to go get resources for District 8. And if that means I have to work with Kevin McCarty or AOC, let's do it if that's what's going to get District 8 the resources that's needed for us to move forward. So I hope that answers your question, but I see me personally, I see myself as a pragmatic individual who, most definitely wants the best for the environment, wants, the best for housing, but then we also have to contend with a lot of the real and day-to-day stuff that people are going through in terms of, inflation, gas prices, food prices, I want to make sure that we're not getting too pie in the sky and forgetting that folks have everyday things that they're trying to figure out.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We do have Ms. Sakima Payne, who's raised her hand for the first time. So we'll go to Sakima, then Dawn. Sorry, y'all.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Johnson. I just have a two-part question for you. First, I know you mentioned reparations earlier, and you talked about that, and that's kind of a hot topic now. I wanted to get your stance on that, or if you were going to address that, if you had the opportunity to go into Congress. I know many of the individuals in District 8 here, our ancestors served in World War II, and we're not fairly compensated as other families were, with the history of the Bay Area. So I wanted to ask you about that. If you were going to address that or try to get anything regarding that passed instead of studies that they're doing. And my last question is, you mentioned something about the Richmond Black Business Association, and I just wanted to know what was that and if that was going to happen here in Richmond. That's all. Thank you very much.
Most definitely, and I hear what you're saying in terms of the study, but I am in full support of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee's the committee that she put together to study the case of reparations. And I'm very interested and eager to see what that study produces, and most definitely looking to support some of the preliminary pieces that have already been shared, but most definitely I don't want to reinvent the wheel, nor do I want to like go in there and act like I know more, behave as if I know more than Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. And so to answer your question, most definitely looking to support the recommendations coming out of that group. But then also to address the second question, more than happy to put you in contact with Mr. Foster. He's, Benjamin Foster. He's leading the Black Business Association here in the city of Richmond, and yeah, I'll be more than happy to put you in contact with him. But he also runs New Life Movement, so he's a pretty public guy as well. So, but more than happy to put you in direct contact.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Excuse me.
Yeah,
We will
please
go
call me
to-
Demnlus.
I have to call you that. We'll go to Don Gosney now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ruck. Yeah, Demnlus, I appreciate that you've come before this group to speak. And so as long as you're here, I wanted to give you a chance to expound on your views and to shine. So I thought I'd ask another question. We recently heard from Congressman Garamendi about his extensive knowledge of the needs of the entire district and his experience in bringing housing into the area, bringing parks into the area, and even bringing funding for major projects for the area. Perhaps you can share with us your specific knowledge of the history and the needs of this district.
Yes, indeed. I will start right here at home. Here in the city of Richmond, we have a need. We have a huge infrastructure need, and so we need to, we have to make sure that those dollars are coming down as well. Our transportation and infrastructure, especially around increasing our ferry operations and services, which is one of our key transportation pieces here in Richmond, is very key. Also, our housing pieces we touched on here today. And then moving, a little bit further, because I was told to be concise, moving out into East County, there is another need around transportation. They have the EBART program, but then as we can see on Highway 4, that need is still there. There's also, another need in the Northern Bay area, like in the Fairfield Vallejo area, for more programs like Richmond Build, and for more opportunities for folks to go into the building and construction trades, as well as more funding opportunities for the unhoused and recidivism programs.
Thank you, Demnlus. Judy Dobert has her name up. She's a first-time question, and then we'll go to Lorenzo. Judy?
Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to know, with the homeless and the low-cost housing and all the difference you want to make in the community, how will you forecast out to compensate for the loss of jobs and sales tax revenue while businesses are going to be leaving Richmond under the current rates of Measure U?
So I'm sorry, can you, so if I'm catching your question correctly, how can we, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question.
As the city continues to lose money with businesses leaving because of the current rates of Measure U and jobs are lost, how do you forecast out? I mean, it's just going to continue to get worse.
Well, the city of Richmond, we haven't had a mass exodus of businesses from the city of Richmond. However, in the event that unemployment, rises in the United States or even in District 8, it's about, bringing in some of those measures that we saw during the pandemic, and even before the pandemic, where we, make sure that folks, get unemployment benefits, as well as have the opportunity, to have, increased housing opportunities as well, so folks can have a place to stay.
Well, you haven't seen a mass exodus yet because the money's not due until July 1st. And businesses have leases that they have to consider. But the rates are too high. It's not going to work.
I'm not, okay. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say what is or isn't going to happen in terms of businesses. I'm consistently encouraging staff to work with the business community on the rate situation, but I don't have a crystal ball to predict to you like if a whole bunch of yeah, I'll be more than happy to contend with that if that is to happen, but it has not happened. And in order, I can't forecast for it. I'm not entirely sure how to answer that question.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Judy. Moving to Lorenzo, then Lisa, then Neil, and then we're approaching the 10 a.m. and Demnlus, are you good if we run over 10 a.m.?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Lorenzo, do you want to pose your question, please?
Yes, hello. Demnlus, first off, again, let me say I appreciate all the accomplishments you have and getting to the point that you're at. I guess I have a two-part question. But before that, let me just say this. I live in the district and I have family in every part in every city of the districts that you're of District 8. So pretty compassionate about what's going on and who the representative is. But I just wanted to know how well versed is your team in maneuvering through the politics of Washington? I guess that's the first question. And secondly, specifically, how versed is your group in environmental issues?
Yes, I have a very diverse team that I'm really proud of, and my co-manager Andrea Slater is very well versed in environmental issues, and she's also worked on labor issues. So she's really good. And also been a Richmond City Council member who've had to walk that fine line of making sure that we keep jobs while also not destroying the environment. I think our team is pretty good at that. And then also, I have a lot of, I have some friends already on Capitol Hill who are, willing to help once I get there. So that way, it's not me coming with a bunch of ideas and no way to get it done. But, I have folks there, ready to help me get a lot of these things done.
Okay, so you feel pretty confident in the politics and the maneuvering around those issues and the way things are done on Capitol Hill. So, okay, I think you answered my question.
And you said you had a two-part question. I believe that was only one part though, Lorenzo.
One was how well versed is your team in maneuvering in politics on Capitol Hill, and the second one was specifically how well versed do you have somebody on your team that knows environmental issues?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, to answer
you
both
hit
at
them,
the same time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Lorenzo. We'll go to Lisa, and I believe the final question will come from Neil. So Lisa, go ahead, please.
Great. So Richmond has always felt that we've kind of gotten the short straw in the county. So now with District 8 bringing together several different communities for the first time, how would you work to ensure that there's more uniformity in communities getting to know each other, uniformity in how policy is I don't know what the right word is, kind of propagated throughout this district, but also equity. And how would you fight? You come from Richmond, you're not as familiar with some parts of this new district, obviously, but how are you going to work to make sure there's equity in what is being advocated for should you be elected to Congress?
Thank you for that question, Lisa. And the folks from Vallejo asked me the same question last night. They say, you from Richmond, you only gonna take care of Richmond. And so for me, it's about knowing what's needed. And I always tell people I'm not an omniscient elected. So, having an understanding and talking to folks and finding out. So when I'm at the table, I can make those requests. One thing that was brought up in last night's meeting was a lot of times folks don't know about the funding opportunities. And so they find out once another city in the district got the money and they find, that there was an opportunity. And so for me, It's about making sure that, that everyone in the district knows about the opportunity to apply, first of all, for the funding. And then if there's funding like to be allocated for different things, having conversations with the different groups and with the different communities to know like what they need. I know for some communities, like in Pittsburg, they have the Motel 6, as the homeless shelter, but they need more mental health services. Well, that's throughout the district. We need more mental health services. But I'm just using that as an example. Like we may need, there need to be more shelters in Vallejo and in Richmond. But at the same time, I feel as though, to get to the first part of your question, it's about building a sense of community. And I see that, like when you say having the different parts of the district get to know each other and stuff like that, I see that as like, I see my job in that as like bringing folks together, whether that's through town halls or even just community events where folks can just, see their neighbors from the other side of the bridge or the other side of the hill and get a better understanding of who they are as a person. But yeah, that's in terms of like getting a better, like having folks more communal. But on the policy side, on the equitable policy side, really making sure that cities first have the knowledge to apply for the funding. And then, as funding is coming my way, as I'm sitting in meetings and committee meetings and, hearing about different programs and stuff, plugging in with different groups and stuff in these various cities, and the city council members in these various cities, to make sure that I know, and things aren't just going over my head as they're talking about funding for specific programs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Demnlus. We'll move to Neil, and if anybody else has a final question, please raise your hand. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. Have you had a chance to formulate a strategy on addressing food insecurity on a national scale, and in particular, food insecurity among children and the invisible plague of senior food insecurity?
So on a national scale, not so much, but on a more local, District 8 scale, when I think of food insecurities, I go back to my experiences at Richmond High School and how we use the school, and not just as a place of education, but as a community center. We called it a full community school. And so having our schools used throughout the district and even throughout the nation, for that fact, Neil, to answer your question, can be used as places where we can distribute food. During the pandemic, schools were actually just that, although they were closed for in-person instruction, entire families were able to go get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And, also for seniors, increasing opportunities like Meals on Wheels, and increasing funding for those programs. So that way they aren't going out of business. And, so yeah, to answer your question, full community schools and more funding for programs like Meals on Wheels.
Thank you, Demnlus. We'll move to Ahmad and then to Hakeem.
Good morning, Council Member, Vice Mayor Demnlus Johnson. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm not Vice Mayor anymore.
You're not Vice Mayor. That's right. You're not Vice Mayor anymore. I was just running down the line of things that you've mentioned and what you've done. Very appreciative of your service to our community. I think one of the things that I've found in my experience as a consultant for many years of living here in the city of Richmond, sort of speaking to what Lisa Johnson mentioned about Richmond getting the short end of the stick, and also you segueing into not joining anybody's team, whether it's the Civil War or the progressive movement, as Hakeem mentioned. But the reality is, at some point, how we end up losing out is the inability to collaborate and the inability to keep your word on what you say and then what you do. When you get to those places, whether it be state or congressional, how do you ensure that we get our fair share without breaking your word to us, and still being able to bend like Gumby, but be able to be true to us as the citizens of this community? That is the art that people, and I'm dating myself, such as LBJ and folks have been able to, to be able to walk that line, to walk with kings and queens, yet not lose the common touch. And we need that. And I know you recognize that phrase.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we're looking for, is not just what you say, but that what you do. And that will either get you past the primary or that will not get you to where you seek to go. Please explain if you could, sir.
Most definitely. And it's about working with folks where I can, and without compromising my own moral compass. As you mentioned, collaboration is very important. And I do understand that in order to get votes on things that I want to get done for District 8, I have to give votes for things that people may want to get done in their districts as well. And aligning with folks who have similar districts, working middle-class districts with hardworking folks, and making sure that, you know, we can get things together. I do believe that you can collaborate with folks without forming cliques. And, you know, like you said, bending and moving like water. One moment you may collaborate with, you may collaborate with one group to get something done for your constituency, and then another time you may collaborate with another group to get something done for your constituency. For me, that's why I always say I can't attach myself to a certain team or a certain group, because no one team or group has 100% good interest of my constituents. And so a broke clock is right twice a day. My job is to find those 2 times of the day and get the most as I can out of those times for my constituents. And so that's my plan of collaboration, and that's my style of collaboration as well. And, you know, some folks don't like me for it, but at the end of the day, I'm able to sleep at night and know that my moral compass was not compromised, and that I've tried to do the best that I can for the most people.
I appreciate the answer. I guess the key also would be to make sure, as you're doing that and decisions are made, that you would inform your constituents before we read it in the news.
Yes, indeed.
Or see it on television.
Yes, or someone else is able to interpret it to their advantage.
Amen. Thank you.
That is a lesson I've learned. Yes.
Thank you, Ahmad, for your question. Moving on to Mr. Hakeem Johnson.
Thanks. And I'm on off of mute.
Yeah.
So, Dennis, I know you've been through a lot. You've experienced a lot on the city council, right? From the Measure U, and I remember you kind of cautioning the previous city council before even putting it on. You've just recently made a bold statement as it relates to the district maps and how listening to the community. But one thing I wanted to ask you about, and this is more from the energy space. You sat on the AB 617 air monitoring committee, where they're looking at the impacts from a monitoring standpoint on the potential health impacts. And I know at Chevron, right, we're really getting into the hydrogen space as a form of new alternative energy that that reduces emissions when you think of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles and so forth. And so just curious on your take on hydrogen as being a potential fuel energy source for the future, or to help diversify kind of the energy that's in the area.
And I think it does exactly that. It helps to diversify our energy resources, and it makes us less dependent on some of the traditional forms. And I think it's something to say that some of our traditional energy companies are exploring some of these new alternative energies resources. And I think that really be with Rachel from IBEW Local 302 is no one has a plan when they say just transition. And so it's like, this is how we begin to actually come up with a plan. Like, is it going to be a hydrogen plant? Are you just going to 100% modernize to make sure that it's clean emissions? And so for me, I love the idea. I'm a no stone unturned kind of person. And so if we're going to, talk about moving into the future and look at different ways of having energy produced in this country, we have to be willing to allow, companies a degree of freedom to explore those things. And so I think it's beautiful, honestly. It it moves us in a different direction, and it diversifies our energy resources.
Thanks. I agree.
I love a diversified portfolio. So
Thanks.
Well, we're going to be coming to a close of our meeting. Demnlus, do you have any last closing word for all of us here?
speaking of diversified portfolios, it's James Lee. No, no. Once again, I thank you, James, Jill, Katrinka, for the opportunity to come before this joint body and share more about my candidacy for Congressional District 8. I know, there may be more questions, or, that I may have provided answers that you would like more details about. I'm more than happy. I see Tiffany dropped a meet and greet for March 31st at 5:30 at the bookstore. Would love to see you out if you can make it. If not, please feel free to give me a call or a text. I will drop my information in the chat as well. Once again, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I really look forward to being supported by your organization if endorsed. And if not, you guys know me. We still gonna be friends in the end. And once I make it to DC, we still, I'm still gonna be somebody that you can call on, and no hurt feelings.
Well, well, thank you. Well, I want to thank everyone as well. Katrinka, thank you very much for putting this together, as well as Jill for helping us moderate this. And thank you, everyone. It is going to be a challenging year for many businesses here in Richmond. We know a lot is in stake for a lot of us. So please keep us connected. And if you have any further question for Demnlus, you can email me or Katrinka, and we'll make sure those questions gets to him. So thank you, everyone, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you, Demnlus. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.